Hello everybody, Arjun here. I have a poetry project to do today, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do is listen to our two poems. So the first poem we're going to be listening to is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe.
The Raven. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more. Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger. Hesitating then no longer, "Sir," said I, "or Madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door." Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the darkness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here, I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me, what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marvel this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door. Bird or beast above the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further then he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered. Still I scarcely more than muttered. Other friends have flown before. On the morrow will he leave me, as my hopes have flown before? Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by replies so aptly spoken. Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast, and followed faster, until his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl, whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet violet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er. But whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee. By these angels he has sent thee respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend. I shrieked, upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the padded bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore.
The next poem we will be listening to is Annabel Lee. It's narrated by Matthew Gray Gubler.
This is a poem called Annabel Lee, written in 1849 by Edgar Allan Poe. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in the sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea.
Before I begin to compare these two poems, let me explain what will be occurring in the video as I speak. I have a video recorded of me drawing two things. The first is the raven with the words nevermore across it. The second is the gravestone of Annabel Lee. The reason for these pictures is to give a visual of the two poems. Also, I felt it would be quite interesting to see the process I used to draw these. There are three things that I'll be using to compare these two poems. The first is theme. The theme in both poems is that loss leads to insanity. How do we know that our narrators have lost something? Well, that's quite simple. In The Raven, it is shown in two different ways. In the beginning of the poem, the narrator is at a loss about what to do with the raven. This fact is highlighted when the raven is at the narrator's chamber and he does not try to get rid of it. He is simply perplexed by it. By the end of the poem, the narrator is yelling and cursing at the raven, which shows he's gone insane due to his presence. The second way that lost insanity is depicted in the poem is by the presence of the mysterious Lenore. The book indicates that she is lost and that the angels know of her. This makes the reader believe that she has died or has left the narrator. This highlights the loss of love. Later in the book, the narrator mentions Nepothine, which is known to cause madness. In Annabel Lee, we see loss early in the poem, when the narrator says, "Chilling and killing my Annabel Lee." Later in the poem, the narrator also says that Annabel Lee is his bride. Because of this fact, we know that the narrator has lost someone which he really cared about. That has driven him insane. There are several examples that indicate our narrator is insane. He sleeps next to his lover's grave, believing that it will bring his soul closer to hers. He also believes that the god's minions killed Annabel Lee in jealousy. Both these poems strongly support the theme that loss leads to insanity. The second element I will be using to compare these poems is symbolism. Each poem is effectively used a variety of symbols. In The Raven, there are two major symbols that the poet has used. The first one is the raven itself. The raven symbolizes two things. The first symbol the raven represents is the concept of endless struggle. The endless struggle is shown through the fact that the narrator cannot get the raven off his door no matter how hard he tries. The raven is always there no matter what the narrator does or say. He always gets the answer, nevermore. The other thing the raven symbolizes is the concept of change. The concept of change is shown as the raven starts off from being a thing of perplexity to becoming the very definition of evil. The second symbol used is Nepenthe. It symbolizes the emptiness that the narrator feels. It was a drug that was first used in the book Odyssey and given to a medicine to Helen. The drug literally means not sorrow. It is designed to place all sorrow with forgetfulness. Thus, Nepenthe symbolizes the emptiness within the narrator because of his loss. In the poem Annabel Lee, the symbolism is shown in two examples also. The cold wind represents the death that kills Annabel Lee, and the ocean represents the emptiness. On one hand, it represents the emptiness of life while Annabel dies. On the other hand, it represents the emptiness the narrator has as he lost someone precious to him. So in both poems, symbolism is used effectively, and in fact, Nepenthe in The Raven and the ocean in Annabel Lee both represent the similar concept of emptiness. The last and final element I am using to compare my poems is tone. The tone for both poems are similar as they both have a brooding tone. The Raven has a dark feel and the tone conveys fear. This is established by the narrator's repetitive use of the phrase, "only this and nothing more." This phrase makes the reader feel like something really bad is about to happen, and it might be the end of everything we know. The poem Annabel Lee has a tone that is sad and forlorn. It makes the reader feel somber as the narrator continues to miss Annabel Lee after her death and sleeps by her tomb. The poem Raven tries to strike fear into the reader, whereas Annabel Lee makes the reader feel sad and want to mourn for the loss suffered by the narrator.